and Ben would be so proud.
That was fast.
I know. And we're live. It is Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You're here with a sleep-deprived Genevieve and a pain-riddled Kate. And we are, we're having cheese night because it's a low-key night. And are you seeing the chat? I'm not. Oh, wow. I wasn't seeing the chat for some reason. It's very strange. Now it's back. Weird stuff all around with Crowdcast. Maybe it got updated. Genevieve, I haven't caught up in a while. How are things going?
Oh, man. Well, keeping in line with our modern medicine discussion, Luke got his first round or his big round of shots yesterday.
Oh, how was that?
Which was a terrifying thing to just witness. So he had one at his first 1 month or whatever, and I insisted that Andrew come with me this time because I was not facing that alone. And so they had to give him 2 shots and an oral vaccination. He was a champ about the first one. The second one, 5-alarm fire. He is screaming, and I think they could have heard him outside. And I was hiding in the corner, like the brave person that I am. I was like, I can't listen to this. And then I'm just very grateful for baby Tylenol.
So, but he's better now?
Yeah, he's fine now. It was just one of those, I guess everybody goes through this, but I have no idea because I know nothing. And it was just one of those things that they're like, okay, you're going to want to give him some Tylenol tonight. And I was like, okay. So we had some, and at first he's fine. And then there was a witching hour, and he just started losing it. And wow. he felt warm, and then every time we held him, it was where they gave him the shots was tender. So a little bit of Tylenol and everything was much better.
Well, we're not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to get our shots. I will say that. So this is the nexus of Luke's pain and mine, which is that last Wednesday night at 7, I went and got my booster, and I was going to do what Ben did and get the flu, and they couldn't even give me the flu. So they just gave me the Pfizer booster. And I was fine until it was sore. And then it got really bad around 24 hours later. And I was a mess on Thursday night. And then in so much pain on my arm and my back and my neck. And then I sound like an old lady complaining about this, but then it just hasn't gone away. It's not quite as god awfully bad, but I don't know what to do. That's the other strange thing, and it just kind of is. So anyways, now I'm just cranky and kind of trying to figure it out. I've just been heating patting it all the time. So one of the things that people keep suggesting is, it was Pfizer, Devin Nunes' lawyer, but one of the keep suggesting is going to a chiropractor, and this is anathema to everything that science-based medicine believes in. And I'm really interested. What is it? Chiropractic? Chiropractic? Sure. It's
sure.
Chiropractic.
Practitioner.
Are chiropractics.
Thank you, JDX.
Real medicine. This is a poll question. Yeah. I'm very interested to know what people think. It
helped my brother a lot. So the youngest brother had back issues, and it's his hip was not aligned correctly. And so he went to one, and he swears by it. And
yeah.
And I've heard a couple of other people, and then other people, it made things worse. So maybe it depends on the doctor.
Yeah, I kind of, but I know people that swear by acupuncture, but they do tons of double-blind studies of acupuncture, and none of them show that acupuncture makes a difference. So I'm just kind of I don't know. I'm just kind of curious whether it's in this kind of is almost a harm principle thing, but why it is that we let people those types of practitioners exist. And there's been all of this other, why we're so upset about ivermectin. Why do we care? Like, why do we care if people poison themselves with like, or don't even poison themselves? Like, just take it and that does nothing. Like, I'm not, hasn't been clear to me. Do you have any idea?
I mean, I don't have an idea why, like, society at large, but for me, it's just if you're willing to buy into a system of any system, and it has a distinct benefit for you, and it doesn't harm another, and I think that that's the crux there. Is like, so when I go to an acupuncturist, or I do something that's like, I don't know, or I buy crystals, for example.
Crystal. Are you a crystal person?
I am not a crystal person.
I'm putting that's the next poll question. Are you a crystal person?
I think they're very pretty, and I do have like geodes in our house, but they're there because I like the geode. They're not there because I think that they give me any peace. Although I make jokes with I've made a joke that I have diamond beaties and I require
well, there you
special
go.
crystals.
I've never heard of that. I've never heard it called that. That's pretty great. That's like,
oh God, I do like jewelry. It's so bad. And I got yelled at the other day because apparently I'm infecting people by sharing my diamond beaties diagnosis. And I got yelled at. Yeah. And I'm like, it's a funny word. Let me do it. But anyway, so if you're buying that, you're not hurting anyone else. And like, for me, that's fine. I am very skeptical of a lot of things. I don't know if it does work, but if it makes me feel better, I'm willing to entertain it. And so for that, like, I went to an acupuncturist a very long time ago, and he really helped me because I had a lot of like issues with like my thyroid, but he wasn't just doing acupuncture. He was also like monitoring my diet and giving me specific nutritional supplements. So I think that that's probably what helped me and like balance out whatever issues I was having. But yeah, so I mean, I guess like if you're going to be an empiricist, you have to be open to everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean,
even though there are studies that say they don't work.
Well, I mean, I don't know if an empiricist, you have to be open to everything. I think that it's an empiricist, you're open to like everything being open to being proven.
Yes. And thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. I think that like, so it's not like you have to like, you know, crystals, incense, like type of thing, but you can, yeah. Anyways, I think that this is like an interesting point, and I'm a little surprised that I think that because there are other things, which is like that people think that they can treat themselves with ivermectin instead of getting vaccinated and then put other people at risk because they refuse to get vaccinated. That's like where it kind of comes in. But
yeah, there's also that medical culture in each. So this was something that I didn't realize. Like there are different medical cultures in each hospital and also like different medical cultures in each country. So I've heard that in Japan, if you go to the doctor and you leave and you don't get like an injection of some kind, then they don't feel like they've gotten like their money's worth for going to the doctor. This is anecdotal. I do not know this for a fact. This is just what I've heard. However, if you think about Americans, if like, especially I'll speak for my grandmother, if she goes to the doctor and she's not getting a prescription for a pill, she doesn't feel like she's getting treated. So when you think about that, it's kind of crazy too.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of moving pieces. The other thing that we were going to talk about is that we have no idea what's going on in the world because we've both been like our heads in the stand. You've had a baby and I have been working on a paper trying to ignore Twitter. But if people want to give us the news, they're welcome to come on and ask a question. Let me see who's asked a question so far. Who's Richard? Binge watching recommendations only. Oh sure. I'll invite John on. We can talk about that.
Oh yeah, I did catch that. That was exciting.
It was pretty funny. I do think that I was so in my own head about it that I didn't even realize that it was confusing for people, but a number of people have kind of been like, I had no idea like what. John Bordeaux, thanks for joining us.
Hey, you hear me okay?
Yeah. What was your question specifically?
Well, I noticed that someone pushed a blue check upon you in your sleep, which I thought was a little uncalled for. So you woke up the other day and found out that you were verified.
Yeah.
And then promptly said, no, thank you. What the hell are you doing? So, and because of your status, then got a call from inside Twitter saying, do you really want me to kill it? Because I'll kill it. And now it's gone. So I'm just curious what the somewhat violent response to the idea. And again, I'm glad I found the right cartoon to capture it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your cartoon was perfect. That was very funny. Also, I love Pigpen. He is excellent. John. So that was actually a perfect encapsulation of kind of what happened. And I'll let you go, John, so you don't have to just like sit here unless you want to. You can Alice.
It's all good.
If you want to. Okay. But no, it was really funny. It was Sunday morning and I woke up and there was like, I had gotten this blue check mark and I have specifically never requested a blue check mark. And this actually is really interesting. So 2009, Twitter rolled out the blue check mark as kind of a way to age gate or to age gate and to basically verify what was like fake accounts that were proliferating on the site. And shortly after that, it became almost like it was not being used as that. And it started to become like almost like a party favor that they would kind of give out. I remember a lot of friends going to South by Southwest. Mm-hmm. And like, it would be like, they'd show up at the Twitter tent and like, there would be marketing people there and they'd be like, we can verify you. And they would like, that was kind of like how it was kind of being used. And so I studied content moderation. And so the fact that this entire thing existed, that people thought that it was a real thing and like that it like required some level of actual real verification, or that it conferred on you some greater ability to keep your account from getting hacked, or to like pull it back if it had been like banned, or to get your stuff put back up if it got taken down, all was false. And so like, I just kind of was like, this is worse than doing nothing, because you're giving people kind of this false idea that something real is happening behind the scenes here and nothing really is. And so I've been offered a blue check mark multiple times and have always been like, no, that's okay. Also, like, let's just not lie. It kind of feels like one of those things like everyone wants it. And so because everyone wanted it, I didn't want it. I just was like, meh.
Would you like to be in our club?
Yes, exactly. And so, and I should also say that it's like the program has like existed and been suspended. No one knows all of this history except for me. But like, I think, and people who like pay close attention, which I don't think there's many, but like, it's like been shut down and restarted a bunch of times. So it might be a more robust thing now. They might be trying to make it more robust. It turns out, actually, I found out why it wasn't totally random, although I thought that it was. I thought that some poor freaking engineer in Singapore or something had just like flipped a switch and verified me for some reason. And I was like ruining their Sunday complaining about this. But it turns out that I did a Twitter Spaces like a week ago with like the head of like Twitter global policy. And someone had made a joke. Actually, it was Nate Pursley had like made a joke in the Twitter, in our like coordinating email that was like, I better get a blue check mark for doing this. And Nick Pickles had been like, blue check marks all around. And I thought he was like joking, but he like pushed it. And so a week after, on a Sunday at 1:30 in the morning, all of a sudden I'm verified on Twitter. And I'm like, no. And so anyways, it was the weird part is, and the part that really bothers me is that it just kind of, I said why it bothers me, but then there's also just kind of this idea that like, as with all of my problems in social media, because I cover it and because people listen to me about it, I get kind of special treatment. And like, there's a level at which that's like a justified response. And you kind of understand that you have a special place as like a certain level of stakeholder. But there's also like, it'd be much more palatable. That would be much more palatable if there was a baseline that was higher for like everyone else. Like if it wasn't such a discrepancy between you have no recourse to get your account reinstated or to get something put back up or whatever, or you're a special person. And so you have and like Facebook just got hit really hard with this, like really hard for having a whitelisting policy. And I don't understand why other places aren't getting like hit with this. So that's everything that happened. And I just kind of They had agreed to let me keep it until Tuesday because I was interested in seeing how the experience was different. But then I think I like my tweets got too much attention and it was probably bad PR, and so they just like deleted it by like the end of the night on Sunday. So it was just gone.
Was everyone else on that email exchange also verified?
I don't know. I should check. I wonder if that's true. Also, like who believes that like these people are going to actually do what they say? Like, oh yes, Nate's verified now, so Nate has a check mark. So I guess they all were. But anyways, it was just like I just kind of thought. But like, isn't that like a weird way? Like I mean, I think that people think that you have to show ID or
there is verified. A mystique. As someone who really knows very little about it, there is a mystique about the blue check mark, and in some way it's like, well, this is going to distinguish you. And like I think Mateo said something about this, like that the function is to distinguish between fake accounts and real accounts. But the other part of this is too, like there's a marketing power to having a blue check mark. Like there are people who are trying to build brands who want that blue check mark because it's better negotiating point for them.
Well, and Scott said this was it's like a target for trolls, and that's certainly true because it makes you feel like and Jamal Green jokingly responded that were they able to defame me with impunity because obviously like the New York Times v. Sullivan kind of thing. And I was like, yes, all of these things are things that I've written about that I think that like I do, like if you do have it, like there is an expectation that you're privileged in some way, but the reality is that you're not necessarily. And I don't know, it just like creates a whole bunch of stuff. There are a few people that there are a number, like somebody sent me, can you get this guy verified? He has 292,000 Twitter followers, and he's like a Washington Post columnist and like has written a bunch of books. I forget the guy's name, and like is not verified. And I don't know what's going on there, but like, I mean, he is more of a public figure than I am. Like that's crazy. So anyways, this is all just kind of to say that I thought it was, I don't know. I just kind of had like weird ideological feelings around it.
Interesting to frame an argument about whether or not you're a public figure based on like the check mark. I would love to see that like play out in like a case, but I doubt I will. Well, actually, maybe. You never know.
You never know. Speaking of the Rittenhouse trial, and we'll get to this in a second. Hey, Chris, did you watch? I haven't been following it, but I did catch the clip of the judge looking at his iPhone screen and trying to explain why it was that it was blurry and this is kind of just an interesting, I don't know if you've taken evidence yet, Genevieve, but that was just kind of an interesting kind of verification of evidence type of point that I think is like super interesting when it comes to like electronic records and things like that, is that it's incredibly hard to verify things in a way that it also has to be translated outside of like a common sense type of thing that used to fly for official documents to making it, explaining a whole, like a blockchain level of like math to like why something is verifiable to a judge or a jury. But Chris, hi. What's your question?
So I have a question. It's sort of I'll give you the sort of basics about the account in question, and then to sort of find out sort of your knowledge of sort of how it works behind the scenes for someone who had a suspicious account that was taken down, and then they said they were verified by Twitter and it was reinstated. In this case, I don't want to go into the whole like down the whole wormhole here, but anyways, it's an account and it's called Kate Stewart 22, and it was suspected of being used by Saudis tied to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who are part of their whole Twitter trolling like online army.
Okay.
This is an account where the person behind the account claims to be like a woman living in the UK, but it's 122,000 tweets, like 100 tweets a day for the last 3 years, and it's only been active since the whole Jamal Khashoggi, and it's just a very pro. It mostly tweets about pro pro-Saudi stuff. And of course,
Okay.
the most recent thing that happened in Saudi Arabia was they acquired a football club in the UK, Newcastle United, which I actually mentioned to on the show.
Okay. But why do we care about this person?
Okay, so I'm just curious because everyone goes back and forth and says this is an account run by agents of the Saudi state, and they say, oh no, I'm just a woman living in the UK.
Okay.
It was taken down and it was reinstated, and the account will say, well, I was verified by Twitter. I mean, not with the blue check. I was prompted because you were talking about blue checks and verification. But do you have any insights into sort of how accounts that are sort of seen as suspect or trolling are taken down and then reinstated because the account usually says I was verified by Twitter, which
no. Okay, so first of all, like a bunch of things aren't making sense. So hold on. Okay. Why do we care about this person? How many follow are they well followed or listened to or something, or is it just like a random person?
But it's I'm saying we should care because it's sort of like a only example I can think of where it's like an example of like a real user in the UK, but also with like the troll army of like Saudi Arabia state and Crown Prince behind this account.
So the account is an amplification of the other messages, but by one individual.
Yeah. I mean, it was named. There's a Al Jazeera journalist named Ghada Weiss who was targeted by the Crown Prince and hacked in the same way that
I'm really confused though. Hold on.
Yeah.
So first of all, there are tons of fake accounts. Of fake accounts. There are tons of fake accounts with very few followers that tweet a bajillion times a day and are not taken down by Twitter. Right. And continue to exist. Right. So why do we care about this one? I mean, and tons that do propaganda work and concerted disinformation. So what is it? How many followers does this person have?
Let me look. Sorry.
Hundreds or
no,
hundreds of thousands.
Okay. She has 25,000 followers.
I mean, there's the possibility. So, okay, so to answer your question, well, how does something like this happen? First of all, them saying I was verified by Twitter is meaning something different than the blue check mark verification. It means probably, I'm not sure what, but they did something that required them, some type of appeal was allowed once their account was removed, if they did indeed remove their account. And the second thing is there is just the possibility that real people run these accounts and are paid to run these accounts as shell people. And so how do you get to a level in which authentication gets at your motives, the motives that you're in, versus whether or not you're the person that you say you are, because it sounds to me like they're saying who they say they are. They might very well be a woman in the UK, but they might be working for the Crown Prince. What strikes me is that's not something that it's Twitter's job to verify.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I was also reminded because the reason why I have my account, Chris Ardress, is because when I joined Twitter, this account was taken and was being used. What's it called? Squatted on by somebody impersonating my cousin, who was a now deceased professor at Harvard Business School. And so I went through the process with Twitter of appealing to them, saying whoever is using this account, it only tweeted once and it just linked once. Whoever is purporting to be behind this account is not my 85-year-old cousin. And so Twitter took that down and then gave me the account. So I've been through. I'm one of the only people that I know that have sort of had an account that was in their name because it was a cousin's name, and been able to successfully get that account. and so I was sort of had a sort of behind the scenes insight into how, you know, somebody is verified without being, you know, getting the blue check, because I had to prove who I was, you know, to get that account in my name, even though it wasn't the blue check verified. So I just was sort of reminded of that experience, and you know, I was sorry if I went down this wormhole, because it's something that fans of the football club are concerned about, because of the whole Saudi influence, and wondering whether, you know, having a purportedly not state-owned but a state-controlled football team is a good thing for the UK.
I can see that. It's so interesting how different words have like different meanings. Like verification can mean so many different things. It can mean it within the terms and service of the platform. And like, even if you're going to, I only know this because of a class I took, like if you're trying to give service through a digital account, you still have to verify that the user's active, and that has a whole different verification like process, and it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the reasons why people talk about kind of like one of the things that it's so frustrating when people talk about easily regulating children's use of the internet or something online, that I get really frustrated, because there is no relief, and there is no very like robust way to make sure that the person on the other end of the screen is and always is the same person who's the account holder, even if they've shown ID at some point or whatever else. Like, you know, so there's, I think it's a great, to the point about squatting though, I'm going to say this, that there's something interesting here. So one of my friends who remain anonymous given the situation, this is a true story. One of my friends was an early adopter of Twitter, later went and worked for the company for a period of time. He's a programmer. And he has one of the two letter handles, because he was so early. Oh, wow. So he has like one of like, it's just his initials. And he was approached, and he uses it regularly. It's not an abandoned account. It's not a deceased person's account. And there's a whole, there's literal IP issues and like an internet law around this. But he was approached to sell his name from an outside party, like just an individual who really wanted it for business purposes and other purposes. And he refused. And he was swatted repeatedly over, and he is a person of color. He was swatted repeatedly over the next period of like 6 months. So for those unfamiliar, swatting is basically, it is like a video game term that kind of came about from, I don't know, like people playing online and watching, and like kids. It started, I think, as a prank. I'm not even sure if it's totally a prank, but it's just like the idea that basically, you call in a threat from a person's residence, and you get like a SWAT team sent to the house, and they come in with guns blazing, and sometimes people get killed, and it's incredibly dangerous. And it's this use of state force in order for no reason or for the purposes of like harassment. Anyways, he got multiple swattings, like of basically of people calling and saying he was abusive. His wife and young kid were standing cooking dinner, and like the team and like a police would not leave the house. That's because horrifying. They didn't. Yeah, it was really terrifying. Anyway, so that's like all to say that like this was all over a 2-letter Twitter handle. So that's kind of an insane. That's kind of like I don't know, an insane level of this. But yes, there could be like an entire, I mean, there has been textbooks written about kind of like the estate law, or like of what happens to Twitter accounts or to various, and like how social media, there's like a very dark story here, how they had to evolve these kinds of ideas, like in reaction to people that dying that use the services, and people lying and taking. Do you remember in Property we taught the sex.com case? Yep.
I remember that very vividly. There's also
sorry.
No, it's so for everyone in the course, it is fascinating, because there's the use, and there's like the enrichment of the building of the business itself, and that person doesn't benefit from or is trying to get it returned to them because the other person had taken it but they were in jail. And I'm not going to be able to do a very quick caption here, but it is fascinating.
Yeah, it's a good case, and that one in particular has a lot of twists and turns that are good for kind of for illustrating.
There's also some crazy website. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. But and I don't want to bury the lead, so let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. To those unfamiliar, the problem of squatting was significant, and the case that especially in the late 90s and on domain names. So the idea was that you'd go and for free or almost free, you'd register a huge swath of domain names. And then when inevitably Walmart wanted to have Walmart.com, you would have like bought Walmart.com and they would have to pay you some massive amount of money to just hand over this property right, basically. And it led to a number of cyber squatting. That was what it's called. And they led to a number of kind of like a number of lawsuits and kind of an established way to kind of delineate these types of things and to pass this along. But the case that I do with property class that Genevieve was in was the case of sex.com, which was that it was a domain name that had been registered by one person. And then another person, and then they didn't use it. And then another person stole it and then basically developed it into an entire pornographic empire that was worth a lot of money. And then the person wanted it back, and the one who had stolen it and used it and developed this and done nothing, kind of went and absconded with all of his riches to the Canary Islands or something. And
he remains.
Yeah. And never faced justice. And it was it was amazing. It's an amazing case in a bunch of ways. But one of the reasons is this idea of intangible property and how we understand, and which is very relevant with NFTs these days, of how we understand kind of all of these types of property where you can't actually possess the thing or control it necessarily, or you could control it, but you can't possess it. So that's kind of physically possess it. So it's a good case. Speaking of which, Richard, let's see if Richard can come on.
Twists and turns. We love a plot twist.
Hey, Richard, what are you watching these days?
Well, my wife and I are 3/5 of the way through Chernobyl.
So good.
It's, you know what? Have you seen this, Kate?
I have not watched it, but I have heard about it. I heard I heard it was good, but then I heard the scientists came back at it and were kind of very upset at its depiction of how radiation works.
I think you have to suspend your disbelief. Definitely.
Yes.
But
yeah. It's a little easier if it was on the moon and not an actual historical event.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I guess some of it's accurate, though. I would imagine. But it's so. Somebody just said harrowing, and that's a good word for it. I can't watch more than one episode at a time, and I can't remember when the last time was that I saw a film that wasn't a horror film. It just had to be tense the entire episode. So it's not a relaxing show to watch. But it's not, but you like it and you find it, it's
you can only watch one episode at a time, so it doesn't sound like you're binging it at all.
Well, I'm slow binge, one a night, I guess.
Richard, do you think that it's so harrowing for you because you're remembering your reaction to the actual event, or is that part of it? Because I imagine sometimes that when films, and they already do depict 9/11, but when they start to do that with more detail, I'll probably, and Kate will probably have similar, I can't take too much of this. Even with the 20th anniversary, I couldn't watch a lot of it.
What was it? Which one?
9/11.
Yeah.
I with Chernobyl, I remember, the period well. I wasn't following the story, deeply, but I was following it along enough. I knew when the I remember the reports when they first detected the radiation in Sweden, and then there was concern about, well, what's going to happen with this radiation? Is it going to travel to America and kill us all? And I don't think people were too concerned about that. But I don't think it's so much that. There's something about just somehow relating to the characters, and I'm not even sure why I relate. Or there's just I found that I was drawn in and just sympathized with so many of the characters there, and that probably has a lot to do with the way I feel, why I feel the way I do about it. So,
So for binge recommendations, are you looking for something lighter?
Well, something heavier. Yeah.
Heavy water.
Almost anything's going to be lighter at this point.
It's true.
So, I got Paula into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I will say that there's nothing particularly prophetic or great about those plot lines. It is the characters and their development that is so rich and so good. And so I know it sounds silly, but that's actually like a really fun show. And it's like the writing is tremendous especially for the era, I think. But I can't, I'm trying to think of like, I can't watch, like, I was trying to think of a show that was kind of like what you're describing, where I like couldn't stop watching, but then I could only watch one episode at a time because it was just so fraught. And the best one that I can think of is Breaking Bad. I tried to I was watching Breaking Bad, and I just was like, I was so compelled by like kind of the characters and their futures and like what was going to happen to them, and like how they interacted under this insane levels of pressure. But like also it was just such an intense show that like John made a rule of like, we can't watch this before bed because you'll never go to sleep. And like that was just kind of, which meant that we just stopped watching. So yeah.
Did any of you watch 24?
We did watch 24.
I didn't.
The whole thing, but I think the thing for me for Breaking Bad, which is actually, believe it or not, it's the only show that I've watched. I've watched the whole series twice, but shows like that, and even to some degree, shows like The Sopranos and the Baltimore Crime, The Wire, and things like that. There's something about watching people's capacity for evil, but also their capacity for good. And it's something that I think is useful. It's really kind of useful for the imagination to think about this. And there's an extent to which it does track with reality, how people really are. And I think that that's also part of the reason why I find Chernobyl, have the reaction to Chernobyl the way that I do, because of because it really brings out these very common human things that that we all deal with at some level or not.
Yeah.
We're all not one thing, and that's such a beautiful point, Richard.
Yep. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I think that right now, now I go back and I watch The Wire all the time, and it's one of like my favorite shows, and I've watched it a million times, but I don't ever watch the season with the kids over again. I can't ever watch that over again. I just skip it. Or don't watch it. So that's kind of like, I don't know. There's just kind of, I don't know. But yeah, and during like all of the pandemic, I watched like light stuff. I watched Buffy over and over again, or I watched whatever. I just couldn't do anything else.
I totally understand that. I also just love Jared Harris as an actor. He also played Lane in Mad Men, and I think he's so talented. And then I have been late night binging Peaky Blinders, which is bizarre to me that is like what I am putting on.
I like Peaky Blinders.
No, I love it, but it's not like a soothing show. It's like something that's really getting you going. So if I have to try to go back to sleep, it's probably not the best choice.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel.
Hey.
So actually, I don't think either of us knows really what's going on with the Rittenhouse trial. So that's why I brought you on. What I
don't actually have or prefer not to
try to summarize a really like fraught trial.
Try to summarize the complicated trial on screen. But my question was, and maybe it's not a good question, is kind of if you guys have either high level or in the weed thoughts about the trial.
I like literally, I just don't feel qualified to weigh in about it. I mean, because I haven't been following it at all.
The most I've seen about it is just people's reactions to it. And it's pretty mixed because a lot of the reactions are understandably emotional. But there's also like a lot of misstatement of just trial procedure. And it also makes me realize that there's a lot that you don't learn necessarily as a general citizen about how a trial proceeds. And also as a lawyer of how like detailed and how procedural these things go and what is appropriate and what is not is Kate, if I'm wrong, please correct me. I feel like that's something that you end up learning after you graduate, really.
No, that's of course true. I mean, like like courtroom behavior or procedure is not something, I mean, frankly, and you know this at this point, but like frankly, the law school is about teaching you kind of a gloss on the law or a way to kind of like, it's almost like a meta law. It's about thinking like a lawyer, not like what the actual law is or what the actual rule is, because it turns out that is a fairly mundane question. And also like, if it's not mundane and it's either mundane and there's like some direct answer, which is almost never true, or you have to comb through a bunch of stuff and do interpreting about like, and that interpretation and like the loyalty to which direction the law is going to go, or the loyalty to your argument, or like whether it's good or bad for your argument, is like something that like you have to learn how to discern and do as a lawyer. But that's not something you learn in like a Barbary class. And that's what the bar tests. And then like, so a law school is to teach you something beyond that. But then of course, like the actual practicing happens when you're on the job, and like how to write for a I don't know. I think this is an interesting point, which is just that like, I think a lot of people have no appreciation for when the stakes are real, what it is that a partner is actually like. And then all of a sudden, when you're kind of tasked with having a real client and having a real argument and not being some kind of fake LRW exercise or something like that, it just kind of gets like everything clicks into place. I think a lot of people have that experience more than you'd think. But yeah, all of TV and even like some of the variation you see between televised trials is like kind of misleading about how courtrooms are. This is like one of the reasons they don't allow cameras in the courtroom, is because it creates a performative atmosphere that's supposed to be kind of free of like performance, you know, like, for the greater public.
Yeah. And it's impossible to, I think, if you know you're being televised, to not try and cater to the larger jury.
No, right. No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is like kind of one of the trade-offs of transparency. Do
you think that's something that would change if we did it more often? Because, like, I mean, if it became more common and like we just had a greater volume of it, perhaps we couldn't have, like, people wouldn't have the time to focus in a way, or they'd become educated enough that they'd understand that things that seem abnormal are actually pretty mundane, and things that like are really unusual are even more unusual. Or is it something that perhaps kind of just to go back to a conversation we previously had, that like you want the people who are your audience to be the people within that community. So like your trial is theoretically a trial for the other lawyers, but also for the jury members who you're kind of giving like down and dirty instructions about the elements of law. So they're is that an incorrect way of thinking about it? Or
yeah, I No, I don't think that's an incorrect way of thinking about it. I'd say that basically the kind of what you're describing is what I would call like the C-SPAN, what's been called the C-SPAN effect, which is that in like 1979, 1980, when C-SPAN started running a stream of like the floor of the House and the Senate, that it changed the behavior and the polarization of the country in its politicians, in the sense that it became a way for politicians to make stump speeches from the floor and get support from their constituents and to raise money and donations. Rick Pildes has written about this, and he also wrote, there's been a couple of studies. Dave Posen did a really great study about this, about the number of times people invoke constitutional rights in floor speeches.
I'm writing
and yeah, and like basically kind of it was a statistical study where they coded all of the congressional record and saw this huge spike in like polarization of like each side using like claiming rights more than they'd ever done before, but it went up dramatically overall post 1980. So like there's an idea that there's kind of that this is, I mean, I think that C-SPAN has that effect, and I certainly think that social media has that effect, which is very, in my opinion, kind of ironic, because you see a lot of like the Ted Cruz's, just like Ted Cruz, you see Amy Klobuchar do it, you see everyone do it, which is just kind of like that they make a speech about how terrible the outrage machine of Facebook is, and they're so outraged, and then they clip it and they put it on Facebook, and like, you know, and it's just kind of a do as I say, not as I do type of moment that really kind of annoys me. But yeah, I think that's kind of, that's generally true. What did our polls come in? Do people believe in chiropractors and crystals?
Chiropractics, real medicine? Oh.
Nobody thinks that it is. I'm
surprised that that percentage of people think that crystals are pretty.
Yeah, I know.
You guys are all diamondbetics.
Okay, I'm gonna. Mike Larkey has a good question, and I have a good answer for him.
I want to know.
Oh yeah.
Because I have a knee-jerk reaction to that, but I don't. Oh, he's here, Mike.
Is he here? I don't know.
He's in the corner.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're in the corner, Mike, but you're not on screen.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. So in the chat where someone mentioned something about thinking like a lawyer, do you know if there's any change in how people think after extensive training like law school or some other kind of extensive training? Because I feel like the way I think pre and post law school is like, it's almost like I'm a different person.
Yeah. I'm putting this in the chat. It's a paper by a couple of people that I used to work with, Dan Kahan at Yale, and then David Hoffman. This is just like an incredible paper. It's excellent. But basically it is a study essentially of whether or not people view facts differently, given the amount of training, like objective facts differently, given their bias in certain areas. So they do an example. The example they give here is that basically like they put, there is a statute about littering, and there is a water bottle in the desert that is found, and like they charge a person with littering by throwing this water bottle away, and they claim person claims that they were putting in the desert for immigrants that crossed the border. And do you like basically the study is designed to kind of pull you one way or the other depending on your politics. Like if you normatively believe that like immigration is fine and that we shouldn't go after immigrants as much, like then you kind of aren't inclined to find that there was littering. And if you, and you know, likewise, like, or, you know, or the opposite, right? And so what's really interesting with this study by Dan and Hoffman, by Kahan and Hoffman and Evans is kind of like, they did this study and found that they tested a bunch of different populations. One was layperson population. One was a group of law students. One was a group of lawyers who had been practicing the bar for like a number of years. And one was a group of judges, and found that like basically the people most capable of overcoming their personal politics and biases were judges, and that it basically went down after that. Like that like judges, like the more legal training you had, the more professional and unbiased your judgment was in kind of weighing certain types of facts than lay people, which is a really interesting kind of counterpoint to accepting the Supreme Court and the politicization thereof, the idea that judges are more politicized or biased towards their personal politics versus the opposite when the law is fairly straightforward or clear.
With the idea that the judges are like practiced in being
it's actually a cognitive science concept kind of called, in the paper they call it professionalization or cultural cognition. But you could call it like a type of pattern recognition, that like you're able to sort out like the things that you're not supposed to be considering and that aren't relevant to a case from basically the things that are salient. And that is so Mike, like as like a lawyer, I think that like there's some, like when people, I don't know if friends come to you for legal advice, but you get very good at this. Whereas like friends come to you for legal advice and they have all these feelings, lots and lots of feelings. All of these things have happened to them, lots of stress. It's like a very normal thing. And like, then you have to just like listen and be like, okay, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Just answer these 3 questions for me. Like, did you say anything to the police officer? Did you did you apologize to anyone? Did you did you do this? Like, did they write you a ticket? Did they when's the, like these types of things?
Or saying maybe and then listing 20 pieces of information that you need to know.
Right, exactly. And so like, I guess my point is basically that that those types of things, cognitively, you might call them like a pattern recognition. And I really like the example Dan usually gives in like his criminal procedure class, which is the chicken sexer. So there's like in poultry factories, they sex chickens on the first day that they hatch. And it's like a very tiny difference to be able to, like, you could do DNA testing, but that's very expensive and time consuming. And like, how do you ever find that chicken again? I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of other things, but basically what they do instead is like, they pick up a chicken and they squeeze it a little, and then they can like see this tiny little difference. And the people who do this for a living can like do it with like, see things that like you and I wouldn't be able to see, but they do it with like 99% accuracy of like separating roosters from like hens. And so like, this is kind of this idea of like pattern recognition that like is another form of professionalization. Obviously the pure visual kind of medium of like chicken sexing is like different than, I hope different than the law, the study of law. But that kind of general idea. Is that helpful, Mike?
Yeah.
Right answer. I'm just gonna yeah, I think that I don't know. I think that that's I don't know. I do think that I grew up with lawyers and my brain changed during law school. So I think that that's I
think that you have to accept so many premises that you disagree with in certain like circumstances just for the exercise of it, and that's healthy. And I wish more people would do that. Yeah,
I think that that's right. The last question, I'm going to read it because we're at 5 minutes left. Is apparently John Bordeaux is already subjecting his bride to holiday music.
Today is a very November good 16th. Question.
Yes. Today is November 16th. I don't know if the Dr. Reverend is here, but if she is, then I'm sure she'll have a feeling. Is it too early for Christmas music? Because let's be honest, there isn't like, no one's blasting Hanukkah music or Kwanzaa music right now. I don't think.
So John is defending him, saying the week before Thanksgiving is the pertinent part of this. However, I find that could be a very, very long time, particularly when the third Thursday is early. That is a really long time for Christmas music. And I love Christmas music. But
I don't love Christmas music. I think that it's like really, well, I mean, I do sometimes, but mostly I find it only Mariah. I could put that on loop and dance around that to my house like all day long. It's really good.
I love
and Pentatonics is good.
Yes, they're fantastic. And I like the oh my gosh, I'm brain farting on their name, but it's like the electric guitar version of all the Christmas musics. I'm going to find this. Hold on.
Okay. No, I don't know it. And I like the Vince Guaraldi, like the Christmas, the Peanuts Christmas music.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I do like Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Yeah. No, anything but Alvin and the Chipmunks. Frankville does. There's no way.
I do a mean Alvin impression. I will say that.
Oh, and Dar Williams, Christians and the Pagans. That's a good one. It's pretty classic. We are going to leave it there. We're a little bit early. Oh my gosh, Richard, where are you with your
Brockner?
With your clock for the next time that the hours till that you made the hours till the next show. But we're going to be back 23 minutes.
Here it is.
3 hours and 4 minutes from now. Yeah, 4 minutes from now. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Nice. And we're going to be talking about the end of ownership, speaking about an intangible property and more specific. It's not, well, he wrote a book on the end of ownership, but he also wrote a great book that, oh my God, where is my brain? In my calendar, which seems to have just like spontaneously disappeared.
I'm really excited for this.
Yeah. On the right to repair. So this is that. So that's like, it's super fascinating. Just kind of all about kind of planned obsolescence in technology, the ability to repair without violating license, but without violating terms of ownership. Just like the ability to kind of the fact that we need to create this right out of property rights. I don't know. It's like a lot of really interesting things. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. And until then, Genevieve,
we don't have fun anymore, but we do have Christmas music very early in November.
Yeah, I kind of signed. I'm anti-John on this one. Bye, guys.
See you.